We are reading from the Yogasutras, and this is our online class number 10. We are almost finishing our discussion on aphorism numbers 18 to 20 in the first chapter. Last time we finished with reaching the climax of self-realization. We learned about the theoretical process of attaining samprajñata samadhi. Then we gave a near example of the samadhi experience of Sri Ramakrishna, as far as he could speak of it. Sri Ramakrishna himself said, one cannot speak about the experience of self-realization in words. If you ask someone who has drunk milk to narrate about his experience, he will say it is a liquid with white color. This does not include the narration of the taste, and most importantly, it also does not include the nutrition or nourishment that is practically done by the process of assimilation of the milk, of which the person himself or herself is not aware. It is like, to give an example, that Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi has told. Suppose you are sleeping. Some people carry you with bed and all to the next room. You are blissfully unaware of it. Similarly, the experience of the self-realization cannot be expressed in words. Now, we have to answer a last question about this attainment of the asamprajñata samadhi. What happens to the persons who have attained this samadhi? That should be a really concerning question. We may get into the samadhi, then after that what will happen? Maybe we entered the samadhi unprepared. We have not finished our worldly duties, responsibilities, important and urgent things, and we enter the samadhi, and what will happen then? What about taking care of those things? So like that, some questions may be asked after the samadhi. So there are three such questions. Generally people are inquisitive to know about. Question number 1 is, how long do they live in this physical body after their realization? Number 2, do they discontinue their practices that they had followed so far? And number 3, what visible changes happen in the persons of realization? We need to know, because unfortunately many people with selfish motives use all nonsensical interpretations of the behavior of the persons in order to confirm their own self-realization. We who are following the practical path of spirituality as the whole life's commitment have a responsibility to caution people about the cheats. There are many such people throughout the world who claim that they have realized the non-dual self. They are everywhere. You meet them almost at each step, and they are there in great number. As if it is such an easy thing like going to the supermarket and buying different brands of things. The matter of the fact is that it is even so difficult to realize the dual experiences of God vision. Then what to speak of the non-dual experience, the most significant practice of which is called detachment, both before and after self-realization. This detachment is a thing that leads us to non-dual self-realization, and that has to be practiced before and to be followed after self-realization. It is not that you have somehow achieved self-realization and after that you can do whatever you want. There are such instances of people cheating others throughout the world. At the same time, you will easily observe that such people lead the same unacceptable life before, during, and after their self-realization. As if it is true that God and mammon can be served together. The funny part of such a claim is that those who are absolutely living in the clutch of their senses and have totally surrendered themselves to the enjoyments of physical body and also the material world, these very people speak of the self, of complete detachment and all. On the other hand, the young seekers who would come to inquire about a higher purpose for life do not, in most of the cases, actually want to hear the real interpretation or about serious practices. The most astonishing fact about such inquiries is that these people do ask very clever questions. Sometimes they seem very wise too. But you wait just a minute, the naked truth comes out. If there are a host of fake gurus or teachers, as people generally complain about, to be sure, there are many more fake students. How can that be? No one ever had doubt about the qualification of the students. Yes, no one did, because the scriptures themselves did it. In any study or research or search, the very first question the scriptures lay down as the rule is the competence of the student. Factually speaking, what these people actually want is to get authorization to their worldly religious life. Worldly religious is a word that can capture the imagination of such seekers, and it has a great commercial value. Can a religious life be at the same time worldly? It is like a competition of swimming on the ground. Uncountable number of people have enrolled themselves in this competition, as it were. Or some of such people want a second line of defense. Just in case the worldly life should fail, and just in case there is really such a thing called the self or the afterlife. So, let us give it a try. One can easily study the psychology of such people, and a host of unfortunate ones follow them. Very sad instances are there throughout the world. Many young people are caught in the trap, and they wallow in the mud of base material enjoyments long time, until one fine morning they turn on their horrible guides and accuse the guides of misleading them. Who is to blame? The truth of the fact is that such people are themselves responsible for such disastrous end. That is why Shankaracharya warned us against choosing a guru or guide who is not connected with the tradition. Sri Krishna also warns us, saying these scathing words. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, O Arjuna, there are people who delight in the tempting words of the commercials and argue that the purport of the scriptures consists in these worldly enjoyments and nothing else. They are full of worldly desires, and they are totally blind in a spiritual sense. They depend upon the flowery words of such books which promote the means for the attainment of pleasure and power. In the minds of these followers of pleasure and power, who are addicted to worldly enjoyments, real self-knowledge is never available. O Arjuna, you should be established in the spirit, in the undisputed purity of it, having abandoned all changeful material values, attachment to possessions, and concern with the contraries of life like pleasure and pain, heat and cold, etc. And also, we should be careful about students, those who come after having learnt a few flowery words about non-dual Vedanta and just go on parroting them in front of you. It would seem that they have great realization behind them. But actually speaking, in most of the cases, from our own experiences, we can confirm that most of these people come to have a kind of sanction, validation of their worldly religious lives. They don't want to follow the path of religion actually. They want to follow their own old path. But there are some other reasons why they come. I am not going to criticize those things, but this is the general experience. Not only there are a host of fake gurus, there is a multitude of fake students. Be aware of them both. Now let us take up the questions one by one. So the first question was, how long do the realized persons live in the physical body after their self-realization? So the answer is, we are dealing with asamprajñāta samadhi that is narrated in the Yogasutras. It is also a self-realization in which one is liberated from the bondage of the world and joins the group of innumerable free souls. There being absence of that ignorance, there is absence of connections or bondage, which is the thing to be avoided. That is the independence of the seer. That is how the Yoga Sutra narrates. In the realization of the non-dual Vedanta, the apparent individuality, which is a mistake, is lost, and one realizes one's identity with the infinite reality that is called Brahman. We should not mix up the two ideas, which are technically very, very different. Now the question, how long do the realized persons live in the physical body after their realization? We may get a very elaborate answer to this question in this second chapter of the Yoga Sutras. We have to wait for some time. Still, we need to have some preliminary answer to conclude this topic. Let us recall that according to the Sankhya and Yoga philosophies, freedom of the soul means its freedom from Prakriti. That is the material part of the whole creation. That is the material cause of our physical body. When the soul which lives in the body, being bound by it, gets its freedom, then it is clear that the liberated soul is released from the body. When? Immediately after, or with the realization, or when? Yes, according to the philosophy, the soul goes out of the body immediately, because the bondage is over. Bondage with the body, with Prakriti, is snapped. But there are proofs that some liberated souls continue to live in the physical body for some days. Sri Ramakrishna has clarified that after realization, the soul can continue to live in the physical body for a maximum period of 21 days. The scriptures, they have said that the soul can still remain in the physical body, experiencing the bondage-free state, even though it is living in the physical body. But how long? Nobody has ever given any clear idea of the days, how long this liberated soul will live in the physical body. The credit goes to Sri Ramakrishna, and that has been acknowledged by the scholars, that yes, now we know that the maximum period of such continuance inside the body of a liberated soul is 21 days. And again, there are proofs that the liberated souls can, out of compassion for the jivas or individual souls who are still in bondage, continue to live as long as they want. These souls are called the Adhikarika Purushas. These are the three positions. So, first thing is that the liberated soul can get out of the body immediately. He does not need the body. That was a bondage. I am free from bondage. I will not get into that cage once again. Second thing, some souls are there who wanted to enjoy this freedom while still remaining inside that cage or the body. But the door is always open for them. They can get out of it any time. But the maximum period for this body to continue is 21 days. The body has its own dharma. It is matter. So it will come to an end after the momentum is reached its 0 point. And the third thing is that there are some liberated souls who do come back and stay inside the body just to help the individual souls who are still in bondage. These are called adhikarika purusas. They have some kind of compassion. How long do they live again in this body? They would live in the body as long as they want. As long as they want. Then the second question, do they continue with their practices that they had followed so far? That was the question. In most of the cases, yes. Even though they do not need to practice spiritual disciplines for themselves, they do it for the purpose of creating inspiration and instances, inspiring instances, and also for the good of others. Those who continue or would like to continue in the physical body to help others, they continue with their practices which they used to do before, even though they do not need it. But they try to create an inspiring instance for others. And number 3, the third question was, what visible changes happen in the persons of realization when he or she continues to live in the physical body? Well, towards the end of the second chapter of the Gita, Arjuna becomes interested to know about the behaviors of a person who is firmly established in self-knowledge. Well, as I have already said, there is a difference between the self-knowledge of a non-dualist and the self-knowledge of a dualist, like in the Yogasutras. But still, qualitatively, the experiences of the self should be one and the same. Well, Sri Krishna, one of the most practical teachers of humanity, answers Arjuna's question and narrates how self-knowledge is established, and then it becomes part of the regular behavior. Knowledge cannot be fruitful unless it is stabilized and assimilated. For this, Sri Krishna talks about 2 important practices. Well, after this, what Sri Krishna narrates, they are, on the one hand, the characteristics of a realized person, and at the same time, they are the instructions to those who want to achieve self-realization. Sri Krishna speaks about these 2 sadhanas or disciplines. They are the control of the mind and the sense organs. That is achieved. And contemplation upon the spiritual teaching. They continue to study or continue to practice. By the practice of these two, the realization is made steady. That is the meaning of the word sthita prajna. Sthita prajna means a person of steady wisdom, steady realization. On the other hand, if these are not practiced, the mind and the sense organs will drag a person to the field of sense objects, and they will gradually pull that person down spiritually. Talking about the characteristics of the wise, Sri Krishna points out that the blessed ones with self-knowledge are always satisfied with their own self because they are free from all desires. They do not need anything from outside to be happy, to be peaceful. Therefore, they do not have desires. They do not have desire because they are not dependent on the world to be happy. Naturally, they are free from attachment, they are free from hatred, free from wishes, desires, anger, fear, depression, etc. Though all of us live in the same world, this realized person enjoys a freedom and contentment which is unknown to others. Though we may be living together, sharing the same room, but the peace and happiness, the freedom that this person enjoys will not be known to me. Thus, if the ignorant man can be said to be in darkness with regard to the Atman, the wise man is in broad daylight, having the knowledge of the Atman called Atma Jnana. The best comparison for the wise people's mind is the ocean. Sri Krishna tells that the ocean is independently full. The ocean does not depend on others for its fullness. Therefore, it is unaffected by the rivers entering or not entering into it. It is also unaffected by the water of the rivers, whether they are dirty or clean. Similarly, the wise man's mind is independently full. It is undisturbed by the favorable and unfavorable experiences, entering or not entering into its mind. Some favorable experiences are entering into the mind of the realized soul, but not creating any unnecessary elation. Sometimes some unfavorable experiences do enter their mind, but they do not create any kind of disturbance there. Sri Krishna concluded this topic by glorifying this state as Brahmi Sthiti, Brahmi state, reaching which one does not get deluded again. The Yogasutras may not like to call this freedom as the Brahmi Sthiti. They will call it Kaivalyam. This person is alone, without the mind, without anything, but not lonely. The realized soul is free and alone, but not lonely. That is the experience of his or her freedom. So, up to this, we have finished the topic of Asampragnata Samadhi. How we entered the Asampragnata Samadhi and what happened there by means of having tremendous fear or by means of having tremendous, peaceful, joyful experience which cannot be explained by words. And then what happens thereafter? So we have dealt with this whole position from the Yoga Sutra point of view. And I have warned that we should not mix up the two realizations. One realization according to the dual philosophy of the Yoga Sutras, and another is according to the non-dual philosophy of the non-dual Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. But qualitatively they are more similar. Now the next two aphorisms, aphorism number 21 and 22. We completed up to aphorism number 20. Now 21 and 22, they speak of the processes, how to speed up the attainment of asampragnata samadhi, how to speed up. The processes are as simple as we may choose in the material transactions. If you engage more time, more energy and more resources for this purpose, then the process will be fast. It will be medium depending on our engagement, which is of medium type. It will be mild if we too are mild in our efforts. They call it lukewarm effort. That means we have to either reduce our engagements with whatever retards our growth, or increase our engagements with whatever helps in speeding up the journey to freedom. This is about the main approach that is prescribed by the Yoga Sutras. We have participated in 9 satsangs so far on this approach alone. That is the first approach. Now we will see the alternatives suggested by Patanjali for those who will like to take up some other approaches, would inquire about if there are other approaches available which are apparently easier and a bit comfortable. But even though it is not necessary to say it, still a but. But we have to remember that is consecutive 7 alternatives. 7 alternatives. The first approach is Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tad Nirodha. One has to stop the changefulness of the mind or chitta or vrittis by practice, and by practice of detachment, Abhyasa and Vairagya. That is the first approach. But after that, Patanjali suggests 7 alternatives. Can you imagine? 7 alternatives. That shows the broadness of the heart, the compassionate heart. That means each and every alternative will present more and more or easier and easier alternative, and each step it will be taking more and more time. The alternative number 1 will take, suppose, time unit 10, and it will be easier by -2. But the next one will take time more, but easier, -4, like that. More time, still easier. Still more time, still easier. like that. And our efforts will be less and less effective. That is the idea behind all this easiness. Easier, more time and less effective. Less time, if you want to get it within less time, then it will be difficult and it will be more effective. There is a sweet story in the Ramayana. In olden days, the saints and sages used to live in the forest. The sage Vishwamitra and others in the community were much disturbed by the troubles done by the demons in the forest. They were saints. Naturally, they were not trained to take on the demons. They heard that two of the four sons of the king Dasaratha, Rama and Lakshmana, were great warriors. If they could be hired, then the problem would be solved. The saint Vishwamitra went to the king's palace to ask for such help. The king loved these two sons more than the other two, Bharata and Shatrugna. He did not like that those two guys are taken by the rishi. So he sent secretly, without disclosing the identity, he sent Bharata and Shatrugna to accompany the sage instead of sending Rama and Lakshmana. He tried to play a trick. Vishwamitra had no idea who was who. He was happy and started his journey with those two young guys to the forest. While going, they talked about different matters. Somehow, Vishwamitra had a doubt if those two brothers were really Rama and Lakshmana. After reaching the fringe of the forest, Vishwamitra wanted to test them. They were standing at a crossroad. Vishwamitra told that the pathway going towards the south will go through the habitat or village of the demons. But it is the quickest because it has a lot of danger. And then it takes less time because one might reach the saint and sage's place in about 3 hours. On the other hand, the other road going to the east would be a detour which may take about a whole day, but it was a very safe route. Vishwamitra asked the boys for their opinion, which one they would choose. Both brothers immediately told that it would be wise to take the longer route because they will safely reach their destination. Hearing this, Vishwamitra knew that Rama and Lakshmana would not be so weak. They would not be scared to face the demons. So he asked them to disclose their real names. Well, they were Bharata and Shatrugna. Well, every one of us may not be proud to tell that we are so daring like Rama and Lakshmana. They created history. Their example is one of very rare phenomena. But there is less challenge for us if we choose to be part of that history. We may not create history, but we may be part of the history. If the Mother Nature has created us, it has also given us the freedom to evolve out of crude and unmanifested nature of ours into the most sophisticated human beings. If God has created us, then He has also given the intelligence to use it to evolve to the most civilized and cultured and sadly sometimes disgraceful among the living beings. There is always scope for a struggle for betterment. Not only struggle for existence, struggle for betterment, evolution. And there is hope for the progress by pursuing greater goals. Therefore, our compassionate guide Patanjali has a list of 7 alternatives to offer for us to choose from. They are all alternatives to the first prescription of Abhyasa and Vairagya, practice and practice of detachment. That is the first approach. We have to keep it in mind. Now we will go to other supports or alternative objects for attaining yoga. We have to remember that they are alternatives to the first one. But you will discover that the same idea of Abhyasa and Vairagya is inseparable from all the 7 alternatives that are following. One has to practice to walk the path towards the goal and at the same time reduce links with our starting point. Practicing to walk the path towards the goal, that is what is called Abhyasa. And Vairagya means reducing our connection with our starting point. The first alternative is the most popular one. First alternative, not the first approach. The first approach, number 1, is Abhyasa Vairagya, and this is the second approach, that is the first alternative. It is the most popular one. We are now leaving the field of our self-effort and entering the mystic region of God's grace. There is a big help to support us in moving ahead in our path. So long we used our self-effort, all the 6 steps in the Samprajñata Samadhi group and Asamprajñata Samadhi. These are descriptions of our self-effort. Now we are entering the mystic field, mystic realm. We are taking up our discussion from aphorisms number 23 to 33, which cover this one single idea. Patanjali introduces God into our life, and he introduces us to God. First, he introduces God into our life and then introduces us to God. He introduces untainted love, undeniable protection, unshakable security, infinite grace, and eternal peace into the whole of our life system. In the earlier approach, you and your mind were there. You were left alone to tackle with the tricky mind. Now you have the most powerful and benevolent companion with you to help. Trust me, then you will prove to be the wisest because you chose this approach, says Patanjali. Now let us look at the alternative. Let me tell you that if I were Maharshi Patanjali, I would have changed the sequence or arrangement of what he has recommended as the 8 means for attaining yoga or samadhi. He said, yoga means chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga means ending the process of the mind taking different forms. I do not dispute this main definition. That is the definition of what yoga is. Actually, I am not authorized to do that. It is perfect from all standpoints, from all points of view. Then Patanjali warns us, saying that if you attain to this samadhi, then you will be established in your real nature as the free self. Otherwise, you will be lost in your thoughts. That we have already seen. You will not remain, but in your place, what will remain? A different you, whom sometimes you yourself will not recognize. You will not recognize yourself. You doubt if it were really you. Let us listen to Swami Vivekananda. If we are not connected with ourselves, and if we are connected with our thoughts, if we lose ourselves in our thoughts, then how will our mind make us play at its tunes? The mind has learnt lot of tunes, different tunes from different countries, and it will start playing those tunes. Then Swami Vivekananda says, then from the world all spirituality will be extinct. All moral perfection will be extinct. All sweet-souled sympathy for religion will be extinct. All ideality will be extinct. And in its place will rule the duality of lust and luxury as the male and female deities, with money as its priest, fraud, force and competition its ceremonies, and the human soul its sacrifice. What Swami Vivekananda is speaking about here is not for the individual degradation, but a catastrophic fate to which we as individuals continue to contribute. So what I would like to change, I told that if I were Maharshi Patanjali, I would have changed the sequence of the arrangements. Yes, Patanjali suggests 8 means to achieve the Chitta Vritti Nirodha. They are Abhyasa Vairagya, the first one. Then he goes to the natural way of meditation on objects by suggesting Upasana, meditation on God, Pranayama, the second alternative, then concentration on any material object, third alternative, concentration on glowing objects like Sattva Guna of the intellect, fourth alternative. Fifth alternative is concentration on the heart of a peaceful person or practice of detachment. Sixth alternative is meditation on a good memory of the waking or of the dream states. And the seventh alternative is initially taking anything as an object, anything of your choice as an object, and practicing concentration on it. Then it helps to try with yoga objects. I used to wonder if I could change the order, like just exchange the places of the second one, that is meditation on God, with that of the first one, Abhyasa Vairagya. The first alternative is meditation on God. But the first approach is Abhyasa and Vairagya. Why didn't you bring God first? I used to think about that. The meditation of God and then the second one is Abhyasa Vairagya. That's fine, I thought. I did a bit of research on it for some 20 or more years. I strongly believed I would be right. No, let me paraphrase it this way. I believed that I would be right. But my research for a long time successfully proved that I was and am wrong. Sad indeed, but actually speaking, I did not fail. Rather, I proved myself wrong. How? These succeeding 7 alternatives are nothing but an extension of the first approach, Abhyasa Vairagya. There is nothing which is better than that. You cannot isolate any one of these following 7 alternatives which does not use the lessons from the first approach. So our practice of the alternatives will look like, if you are practicing number 2, meditation on God, then +1, the first one. Number 3 +1, number 4 +1, and so on till 8 +1. Hence, it should remain at its place and it happily retains its place. This is not a small success. Revered Maharshi Patanjali, you are safe and you are right as always. What a science! We followed the process of 7 samadhis, 6 in the group of Samprajñata and 1 what is called a Samprajñata, the final samadhi, which is called the yoga. We have seen how the experimentation started with gross objects like savikara, nirvikara, meditation on gross objects. At first, meditation on objects, savitarka, with their additions like time, space, name and meaning. And then meditation on objects with the additions, nirvitarka, without the additions. Then we move to the subtle objects with their additions like time, space and the nature of the object. That is called dharma. The first one is called savichara, the second one is free from these additions and is called nirvichara. These additions are sometimes called vikalpas, or the description of the thing but not the thing in itself. Like we have discussed, sugar is a real thing, but the description about sugar in time, space, name, meaning and the nature of object, the description does not give you the taste of real sugar. So it is called Sabda Jnananupati Vastu Sunya Vikalpa. All the words are there, but they will not give the real thing. Then we moved further on to this Sananda Samadhi, which is a meditation on the Sattva Guna of the mind. Then the highest in Samprajñata Samadhi, the 6th milestone, Sahasmita Samadhi, is reached. It is a Samadhi on ego or I consciousness. We entered the Asamprajñata Samadhi with these two, I and consciousness, but found that they both are one and the same. I equal to consciousness, consciousness equal to I. Did I summarize correctly? I think so. Then Patanjali says that now he will narrate about some alternatives for which you need to go through these samadhis. No, you don't need to go through these samadhis. That part is over. Some of those processes are meant for going directly to Asamprajñata Samadhi. Some others are aids to the first type of approach. At least that is what the explanations say. So we do not have much time today. I will just introduce the first aphorism, that is the first alternative, but the second approach. Ishvara pranidhanat va, or by devotion to Ishvara or God. I am using the word God as a free translation of the word Ishvara. But here this Ishvara is not exactly God. There are three words in the aphorism: Ishvara plus pranidhanat plus va. The first word is Ishvara or a God. We will wait till the next aphorism to see how the Yogasutras define the word Ishvara. We will see that yoga does not define God as the word generally means and widely known. The yoga God is not a creator God, neither a personal God. These two things should be kept in mind. The Yoga Sutra God is not a creator God and also not a personal God. This is a big departure from the dualistic ideas of Bhakti Yoga. That is why this God is called Ishvara. This is a technical term. So, I will not go further with this. It is a wonderful study, and it is spread over 10 aphorisms, and they are really, really important to understand what Bhakti Yoga actually means. It is a very, very analytical study of devotion to God. It is an analytical study of God itself or Himself. So, we will be waiting to look into those wonderful aphorisms in our next class.